What's everybody's plan from here? I think getting in with Felix and stuff, maybe we can just make some rolls and kind of not play that out as a scene. That like the first thing some of you are doing.
Vivian wants to keep up appearances and party pretenses, but she also wants to find this Peterson person as quickly as possible before they can cheese it into the catacombs or wherever the fuck is in this building. It's like a monolith. It's a huge skyscraper. They could be anywhere by now.
Ulysses is very much not in his element in these social settings, so he is perfectly happy to let Kaz and Vivian take point and fulfill whatever kind of supporting role he can in terms of anchoring down their objectives. He definitely wants to observe them and try to learn more about how he should be acting in these situations.
Is Ulysses going to be backing Felix, or does Kaz need to do some convincing work there to start with?
Has this been anything that they have discussed as a group, or that like Vivian has brought up, or anything like that as far as what their family's stance on this issue is specifically?
I think Vivian was assuming there would be more FaceTime to get a beat on them at the party, and then things went terribly awry.
There's probably a quick negotiation between the three of them as they Kaz wants them to help him push, probably makes the quick case to Ulysses and Vivian that look, we have dirt on Felix. We can push him the right way. I know this wasn't the way we wanted to do this, but you have priorities. I know you need to go catch Peterson. So Vivian, you do that. If Ulysses, Vivian, I can count on your votes for Felix. Ulysses, can you just be a rock of opinion that I'm going to send random people to come talk to you, and you be that resolute voice of logic for Felix as arbiter. And then we're as families both on the same page of making sure that this arbiter doesn't fuck us for what just happened today.
Maybe downplay the people hunting just till after the election.
Absolutely. That stays with us. I have a ranch that he can use. We'll keep it out of the public eye.
I'm in support of anyone that we can wrap around our finger. If we have dirt on him, something that's actionable, something we can use, then I'm for it.
Trust me, his name might as well be Ring. He's right here.
I think Ulysses also smiles at that, and he says, I know everyone on this planet doesn't like to hear it, but times change. Some of the old guard is starting to cycle out. This is a new face, someone who's going to be in the game for any length of time. It would be wise for us to tighten our grip when we can. I think your insight on this is accurate, Kaz. You should follow your instincts.
Kaz is pleased by this. He feels like he's picking up on a little tone that you think he's part of that new guard, and that makes him even happier. So, yeah, I guess my plan will be to rally support around Felix and make sure that, the voting blocks are going to line up. While Ulysses functions as that, referral note, and Vivian hunts Peterson.
Did you also want to talk to security, or has that been dropped?
Oh.
I think maybe we should wait on that just until we find the guy.
Yeah, let's figure out. I don't know. Does Vivian also think it could be Tag Wilder? Because he's a little dick.
This little prick.
We can solve that later.
It could have been an inside job for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to the security issue.
For the record, I'm putting Tag Wilder into my notes now, and he's 14.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He absolutely is.
14 years old. I'm writing that down.
Is it Tad Wilder?
Or Tag with a G?
Tag with a G.
No, Tagurette.
Tag. Is it actually Tog? But everybody just calls him Tag because nobody wants to do that?
Tauge with an apostrophe.
We are the Wilders. My name is Tog Wilder.
Yeah.
No one could ever expect me. Tag Walter.
In the father tongue, it's pronounced Tauge.
Tauge.
Okay. Yes. On that, Caleb, I have an edge called Work the Room. When I support an ally with performance or persuasion, I can apply this result to 2 allies. So I'd like to, in their schmoozing, people talking efforts, I would like to support Vivian and Ulysses, and then I need to also do my own working the room.
Great. Well, let's ignore what the edge says and just give you a +2 on your persuasion roll.
I'm also fine with the plan of Kaz sending people to Ulysses, but because Ulysses has the shamed major hindrance, Kaz would also know that Ulysses is like not very popular with a lot of people, and it would be questionable how much influence his word would carry. But I'm also fine with this out of character. It's just something Kaz would know.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think Kaz knows it and almost uses it as like a counterculture badge of honor for Felix in this case of like, look, if the most uncool, unhip person here, Ulysses, supports Felix, then that tells you that he's not going to be a problem to manage. He doesn't have a brand that's scary. I'm going to use a Benny to re-roll that because I got a 1 and a 4. That is much better. +2, that is an 11 on persuasion.
I think you can turn the room easily to voting for Felix. You know, people are wary of people that aren't in a family, but I think the way you spin it is very much like, well, that's a benefit for us, right? Because that means we have way more control over this guy than we would of one of the major corporate families.
And literally to every family, right? Like when I talk to the Wilders, I tell them how, look, this guy will fuck over the Shrekken gas. And when I talk to the Shrekken gas, they're like, look, he's not tied to the Wilders. He's useless. Like, yeah.
Here's some options for you, okay? You can have Felix kind of be in your pocket. Like you have one favor from him because he knows you kind of got him elected. 2, you could have a favor over another family of your choice because you make them believe that, oh, you want Felix elected? Sure, we can get Felix elected. Yeah, no problem. Or 3, Ulysses' shame turns a little bit into intimidation in this sort of environment. And maybe with a raise, pick 2 or pick 1 and give me an alternative.
Definitely going to choose to have Felix like owe us 1 and make sure he knows what's happening. He's going to kiss the ring at some point in the future, and he needs to know that it's our ring.
Force Ghost of Claudius gives you a thumbs up at that.
Yeah. If there's one thing Kaz knows, it's that his dad and uncle really like politicians in their pocket. They collect yachts and politicians.
There's not even an ocean here. What do we even use the yachts for?
Yeah, we're not going to use the yacht.
I just collect
What are you, crazy?
And then I think like if I can make Ulysses more of an intimidating figure, that's fantastic because Kaz's brand is love. So if he can have a respected person who like he gets along with and gets along with their partner and they can be kind of like intimidating, yeah, he can help build that little mythos around Ulysses too. Less of like a gross uncool and more of a, oh damn, that guy's so scary. He's almost kind of cool.
Ulysses, is your intimidation better than your persuasion?
I have a D4 persuasion and a D4 intimidation, but I have the menacing edge, which gives me a +2 to my intimidation.
So Kaz is letting you roll intimidation for this and then add a +1 from work the room, even though I know it's not exactly what it does.
Blew up my D4 into a 1, so that's 5 +2 for menacing, +1 is 8 total.
So what would you like to get out of this? I think some options for you. You also get a favor from Felix. 2, there's like one person that kind of overcomes your shame hindrance into just like, oh shit, well, you know, this guy means business now. He's on his way back up and I need to get in his good graces. Or alternatives you have. I'm not sure.
Honestly, I like both of the ideas that you just pitched. Ulysses is having to pragmatically look at this situation as though he is going to be the acting head of his family, you know, in the foreseeable future, because that's what it's looking like right now. So he knows that he's got, you know, kind of a bad social rep that he's going to have to work against. So any seeds he can start cultivating here are going to be favorable, whether that's controlling an important politician or political figure, or just starting to bandage his name in some ways.
Well, some options then for you are the St. Meyer family, which is one of the fashion families that currently controls power suits. You could do Giddens, which is space travel. You could do Leon, which is industrial travel. Taurus is entertainment, and they're quite powerful. Duke runs all energy on the planet. They like contract out everybody that wants to be a power rancher. Frontanu or Kakova, which is heavy weapons and alcohol.
I think we had Duke Energy in Florida.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, Duke Energy is big.
They're huge.
Allie/Vivian, are any of those families catching your eye as somebody that you know we would have been trying to establish rapport with?
I mean, power suits are good, but probably not the most pressing family to be cozying up with, especially with her current outlook. Entertainment's never a bad idea. Everybody craves it.
If you're polling Vivian, she would know that America St. Meyer is a bitter rival of Evelyn Schreckengast.
Secondary objective.
The fashion license changes every 5 years, so they're one of the two main families that does that. They just currently don't have the license.
I feel like even though they might not be as explicitly useful as the entertainment family, that might be applicable just for backstory reasons. But I could also see entertainment being important based on Vivian's relationship with Kaz and moving in the socialite circles. What do you think?
If it was, 2 hours ago in universe time, she probably would have gone for the other rival fashion family. But she's sensing they're going to need some more power players in their corner than petty rivalries that are lodged in her own heart. So I think the Taurus makes the most sense.
Okay. Let's say we'd like an in or some sort of bump with the Taurus family.
Sweet.
As one of those.
Vivian, do you want to get a Benny for picking the Taurus family? And then Claudius, I forgot to give this to you. I think that scene between Tex and Claudius was great. So if you want to get a Benny as well. The rest of you can go to hell.
Could I nominate Isaac for a Benny for his name will be Ring comment? Because that was very good. I like that.
Sure, but I'm also going to give Tag Wilder a Benny.
That's fine, I guess.
Deserved.
I think how this plays out is Kaz is, making his rounds around the party. Very quickly, what's the setup for the election? Because I'm sure you have something like, they have devices they're voting on, but what's the backdrop of the vote that Kaz has set up for Flair?
So first of all, the people who go hand out the little voting things, they're like the clickers that you use in class, to like vote on quizzes and stuff. The attendants that come out to pass those out are wearing masks of Felix and Raul. Yeah, the mask is like split, is like
Nice.
Two-Face, like half of each. It's
my
very
God.
thematic.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, he didn't actually think about it being scary, but
I think Vivian helped him pick that out, and she's just standing with him as they're walking through and handing out clickers, and she's just like, yeah, I didn't think about that.
oh no. He like clutches her hand in terror.
It's gonna be fine.
Will it?
Oh, yeah.
We might have to shoot them.
Just set off the fireworks, Shirley.
Oh, yes,
Everybody else
yes.
will get it.
Perfect. Okay. He looks around for the party organizer and like operator and runs over to her and starts like feverishly giving her new directions on how to tweak the party. But as these attendants are handing it out, I think the votes are intended to be private. We don't want to reveal what everybody's voting. But the plan is that the room will kind of go dark and the spotlights will only illuminate Raul and Felix now so that everybody has their eyes on these two candidates regardless of where they're at and what stage of drunkenness they're in. We're in a very strict time limit. It will be 2 minutes to vote, 120 seconds. And when the votes are completed, confetti will rain and spotlights will remain on the winning candidates and the traditional like Arbiter March song will be played.
It's a lot of trombone.
It's a lot of trombone.
While this has been going on, I think Vivian had time to squeeze that interaction in. Ulysses, are you keeping kind of by her and fielding questions while she's looking for Peterson?
I think they just kind of drift in each other's orbit. He wants to stay nearby, but he wants people to feel more free to talk to her. So he doesn't want to like intrude on that, but he also doesn't want to leave her alone given what's already transpired tonight.
How do you want to find Peterson, Vivian?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I do have an adventure card that I'd love to play.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's Here Comes the Cavalry. Help arrives on the scene from some source determined by the GM. So perhaps she's been asking around covertly with her very attractive edge, trying to weasel information out of people.
Okay, yeah. So in this carousel of socialization, at some point you mention to someone, hey, I'm looking for this person named Peterson, and they say something about how, I think they're with Ophelia, they know who you're talking about, and then just way sooner than you expect, like immediately after that conversation, comes Ophelia Crow, with Peterson in tow. So Ophelia looks different every time you've seen her. She is so deeply invested in the culture of fashion, and also every time she's picking an outfit, she's blitzed out of her mind on Nova or Snuff. The outfit she's wearing tonight, so you know that the texture of those aristocratic collars, those ridiculous white puffy things that come out over the shoulders. The texture of her dress is that, but it's spiraling around her body in this pink mess that sort of maybe reminds you of the shape of like a snake or maybe a butterfly, a caterpillar. You're not sure. Besides that, there's nothing but skin. The makeup on her eyes is basically pure black, and it like explodes outwards towards her ears and like these flowy tendrils. And then all of her hair tonight has been dyed a gray that has like a slight tinge of another color, like an iridescent shine in it, that's pulled up into a Leia Organa-esque set piece. And she approaches you, the figure in tow, who's dressed in a, I don't know, what would you dress most? This is like an on-staff person, Isaac, that, is kind of responsible for, like, they're a runner.
I think for this party, right, like they would be in costume to match the biome that they're supposed to work in. But if they're a runner, like, and going to be moving around, specifically one of my moms, I probably would have really pushed for them to be like very nondescript, So like almost kind of blend into the background and be a non-person as much as possible.
Maybe they got a tuxedo with a faux helmet ring, like something you'd slide into and lock a helmet into. And then they've got just a helmet at their side, like reflecting some of the power suits noon side. Vivian, it's so good to see you. I love what you've done with the place. It looks beautiful, and you look stunning. You look stunning, darling.
Well, Kaz is a font of inspiration, but Ophelia, you look like a dream.
Oh, you can't mean this old thing. I just rustled around in the closet until something popped out at me. A lie, clearly. Now I've brought Peterson, there you are. Yes, ma'am, I heard you were looking for me.
Yes, I was actually hoping to maybe score a little bit of delight, if that's in your wheelhouse for the evening. If you have any extra on hand.
Oh, of course, but perhaps there's a better suited place for this, if you don't mind following me.
Oh, of course.
And he points into like the darkened room.
Ooh, could I spend a Benny to have this being happening in like during the actual election process, so this room is fucking empty, like Ophelia's on her way?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. Like she's come out to participate in the election, and everybody else too. That sounds sweet.
What does this cool room look like?
Ophelia's den of iniquity is a strobing mess of lights and assaulting smells. Curtains hang from the ceiling, either thick enough to provide a measure of privacy or wispy in a way to allure the neighboring pockets of would-be hedonists. But I think no such hedonist exists anymore, right? There's some people that don't get a vote that are still in this room, the entourage of all these people that are now moving out to vote. But it's kind of spread out, and the music in here is a bit louder, so you do have some measure of privacy as you enter back in, pushing through curtains. It has like the feeling of a hall of mirrors, maybe at the end of John Wick 2, but instead it's just all curtains, so it feels very claustrophobic and open at the same time.
Okay.
He leads you inside and kind of moves behind one of these curtains, and then quickly opens up his jacket, sort of like the merchant in Resident Evil 4.
What you buying?
Yeah, what you buying?
What are you selling?
He opens up some of it, and there's just like a variety of vials in there. Are you sure you'd like delight? I think things are a bit too heavy at times like this for that. I do have snuff or Novo, whatever. I'm sure you've spoken with Ophelia about it before. And Ophelia just left you immediately.
Yeah.
She barely even registered that you left the conversation. She just moved on to someone else in the room.
During this scene, while Vivian disappears with Peterson, I think Ulysses continues to trail just in their wake, through the darkness and the lights and the smoke and the fog that is undoubtedly swirling around in these party-goer rooms, but doing his best to give them privacy while remaining close at hand for additional support.
Vivian leans into this guy in the darkness of this little secluded alcove, perusing his wares and genuinely seeming like she's taking her time. And then there's a slight pneumatic hiss and the seams denoting her cybernetic implants expand a little bit. They become more grooves in her skin, glowing, hot, pink-white. And suddenly the room is filled with swirling vapor that pours out of the furrows in her skin. The lavender and pink swirling mists. It smells so sweet and it looks so inviting. And the motes of light drifting around in it mingle with the illusion of her starlight dress. And when he looks up to her eyes that flash and he sees her smile, his mind feels lighter and easier than a couple seconds ago. And why shouldn't he just relax for a second? Even as her seams retreat and retract back to their usual soft pink glow, the motes in the gas that remain drift around the room like cherry blossom petals. And I would like Vivian to cast Mind Control as her catharsis.
So he just sort of like pulls himself up a little bit.
She leans in very close to his ear. How did you get that edict in? The edict for Luella Rook?
Smuggled it in with some of the food the caterers brought in. I got it from Tanya outside the tower and then brought it inside for her.
From Tanya?
Mm-hmm.
What else do you know about this?
Nothing really.
Nothing really.
I'm not sure where she got it from. Some black market dealer.
Do you know when?
The last week. I just smuggled it in tonight, brought it into here, and found her.
What did you have to gain?
200,000 chips.
Which is a huge amount of money to this guy, but the price of edicts makes that insanely low.
Why don't you tell me what Ophelia's been up to?
Tonight, her usual. Hiring out my services to anybody that wants them, yourself included. Complaining about her husband, as she does.
What about right now, specifically, if you don't mind?
I believe she's gone out to the election to vote.
How does Ophelia feel about Kaz?
I'm not even sure she knows who he is.
Vivian's brow knits at that for maybe the first time in this conversation where she's had a very pleasant socialite mask. And I think that's the last question she has to ask. I think the gas starts to dissipate, and before its effects are completely out of this dude's lungs and his bloodstream, she just whispers, "And you're not going to tell anyone about this, all right? Just between us, good friends."
Are you going to tell anyone about this?
Of course not.
Then yeah, I think you let this guy go back into blissfully dealing drugs to the rich and powerful.
She does take a couple vials of whatever the fuck.
Cool, just for appearances?
Yeah, just for appearances. It'd be weird if she came out with nothing.
As you come back out into the party, I do think Claudius has made his way upstairs, and you see a figure talking to Kaz as we go back a few minutes ago. Kaz, you're approached by a figure, one of the people in the dual-faced mask, and they walk up to you and they just say,
So who do you think is going to win this thing?
Sorry, this is someone in a mask, like one of the staff.
yeah.
Kaz looks at them. Why are you talking to me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this would be kind of funny.
And he takes off the mask and it's Felix.
Kaz loses his shit dramatically.
What a
And
scam.
like the biggest, what the fuck face. Felix, oh my God, that is a wicked prank. You got me.
I evaded
you
the
got me good.
spotlight and everything.
Oh, well, Felix, I think there's a good chance that you and I are going to like the person who wins.
I have been hearing that you've been putting in a good word for me, so I appreciate it.
Felix, I don't put good words in for people. I put words in about them, and if they're good people, then they're good words. That's how it works.
I love the energy you're bringing to this. I think it will be good to work together in a way.
I think so too.
Or at least
And
with your uncle, I doubt I'll see you very much in the arbitration rooms.
oh, well, probably not in the arbitration rooms. They like to keep me loose and in the streets. That is where I'm at my peak. But
I can see you're peeking right now.
I have not even begun to peak tonight. We are on our way to the mountain. It is going to be a crescendo of immense proportions. I don't want to spoil it because surprises like this are rare. And I don't want to ruin your party. So I will say, though, you and I are going to be spending some time on the ranch soon, if you know what I mean.
Anytime, Cass. I've got nothing to hide.
Of course not. Everything's totally legal and fine. You don't need to hide anything like that.
Speaking of the ranch, I've been through a few storms out there, and I noticed something a little while ago. I thought maybe you could put my little heart at rest. It seems like there was some sort of disturbance in the tower.
Oh, here?
Did you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's...
I voted for you, Felix. Hey, you're going to win it, man. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. That's real good. Yeah, real good, Todd. Sorry about him.
Todd's a hell of a racquetball.
Oh, he is. Do you have him on your team?
Oh, I wish I could get him.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've been trying to get him to play with me for at least 6 months.
You clearly don't have enough blackmail on him.
Felix, I'm trying.
So about the tower.
Yeah,
about the tower.
So the situation with the tower is that we are in the middle of a party. And we're trying to manage elections. And unfortunately, I didn't think about the fact that the masks are slightly upsetting.
Do you want to make a persuasion roll?
I have a D10. Ooh, I got a 6, but I feel like I want to spend a second Benny. Oh my God, I rerolled into a 3.
So stick with a 6?
Then yes, I'm at a 6.
I'm going to spend a Benny. It's 3 Bennies spent. Got an 8 over here, Kaz.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about the masks. I'm talking about the rocking feeling that was in the tower earlier. And I mean, you don't have anything to hide from me. I mean, we're going to be partners soon. I just want to know if I should be worried.
Kaz thinks really carefully here. This is going to be one of his, probably one of the first tests for him of how he manages this relationship. And he wants to subtly walk that line between being respectful while also telling this man to fuck off in a hole and die.
Yeah.
So I can lie, but he's going to know I'm lying, right? Is the outcome of this.
Yep.
And I think Kaz is astute enough to know that this guy is, as you said, he's pointing the screws right at him.
Sure.
I think the pause is kind of long. Well, Felix, he puts an arm around him, this very young man in Kaz, putting his arm around this man, decades his senior in experience and worldliness, pulls him more to the side of the room, out of the lights. There was a reporter with tapes of certain activities, and everybody involved in those activities was just blown the fuck up. How about that? That's what it was.
Well, of course, then it would be my prerogative to investigate this as the arbiter in about 2 minutes.
Kaz checks his own chronometer. Should be about 10 seconds. But I'm pretty sure that investigations like that usually take about 6 months.
Funny, that is about the amount of time until your license expires, isn't it?
It is. But, accessing deep records of audio and video often takes time, even for the most technologically advanced.
That's true. We might have to freeze your assets while the investigation is ongoing. Or at least stop sales of edicts, which I understand might hurt, but if we can't be honest with each other, I guess I'd have to find out. Kaz, I'm just a man from the country. I'd never been in a shut-in party before. And, normally we wait these things out in bunkers, not 40 feet above the street.
Yeah.
So I'd just like some level of comfort.
I'm sorry. I apologize if I misunderstood your intent in any way. We had a minor security incident. It has been more than handled. I fully suspect that the Wilder family... We've had a small security incident. I fully suspect that the Wilder family will be cooperative with us in our investigation. And as I said, any reporter with any sort of documents or what have you, those are irreparably lost.
I appreciate your honesty, and we don't need to get bogged up in the details here. You are getting me elected tonight, and
That's right.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to go over the details in the future. I'm just worried, so thank you for putting my mind at ease, and, I look forward to working.
Of course. Look,
together
when you're with the crows, he looks around at the party, flinching internally as he looks at the masks. He realizes that the vote was supposed to be ended 10 seconds ago, but there's no confetti coming down from the ceiling. Almost twitches internally. When you're with the crows, everything goes super well.
As you fret over the time, Kaz, I think if you want to enter Claudius, as you said off screen, you're welcome to join this scene.
I think Kaz sees Claudius out of the corner of his eye and is like, oh, thank God. And it gives him a really subtle little signal. And as you walk up, leans in to give you a welcoming hug. I think I just successfully blackmailed him.
Claudius attempts to not let the smile go away from his face that's been plastered onto his features. He disengages from the hug with Kaz and holds out his hand to shake Felix's, and then the other prefers a bottle of some sort and holds it out to him.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, we didn't have time to talk earlier. I was just speaking with your nephew here about the disturbance you had in the tower.
I believe I heard the end of that, something about that we got you elected as the arbiter. I'm sure is what I heard. Now, what's interesting about that phrase, and he's gripping on to this hand and hasn't let go. What's interesting about that phrase is if I were to testify that any sort of interference that happened during this election, why, it would make it difficult for you to remain impartial as an arbiter, wouldn't it? It would cast aspersions on all of your future decisions. I'm sure we would.
Oh, yes.
Consciousness. We would have to call for a re-election, wouldn't we, Felix?
Well, I'm sure it won't come to that. I'm sure we're all quite pleased with the results. And as I mentioned to your nephew, any help you require, I'm glad to give. I'm just here to learn as a simple rancher.
I'm sure any aspersions that you'd like to cast over this evening would, well, we would all regret remembering anything but the delights Kaz brought.
Of course.
Excellent, then. I think the results will be announced any moment now. Congratulations. I understand are in order. Have fun, Felix.
Thank you. A pleasure, I'm sure.
Just sort of pats Kaz on the shoulder and gives him a very significant look and then walks away.
As you pat Kaz on the shoulder, confetti starts to fall just silently. There's no explosion. There's no raucous. It's just black and white paper falling from the ceiling as the music just cuts to a halting stop. It falls down halfway through the room, floating to the ground as you're locked in the end of this exchange until the electronic sounds of celebratory explosions and the band goes into full swing, clearly off time as everybody starts to get notifications that Felix has been elected as the new arbiter. Crowds start to form around, lots of clapping, spotlight coming down on Felix, calls for speeches as Claudius slips away. With the information you guys have at this point, I assume Ulysses and Vivian come up and there's some sort of collective, like maybe Kaz is sort of halfway in between this group and Felix, trying to make sure he's kind of in the spotlight. But what does the group want to do from now?
There's a shot of Claudius and Kaz seeking Vivian and Ulysses out because they're already together speaking, and we just see Vivian mouth the words, "It was Tanya."
Ulysses has been a black silhouette with yellow-orange etchings and eyes sort of moving in the background of all these scenes, and he nods at Vivian's words and I think only offers You're an extraordinary woman, my dear.
Stop.
Never. What are we to do with her?
I could think of several fine things to do with her.
This appears to be an overt betrayal, something I do not take lightly.
We could bring some light and sound.
The first of many unpleasant decisions.
Well, someone has to make it. It can't be me, she says with a little bit of regret in her voice.
Heavy weighs the crown.
It looks nice, though.
Stop. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add on to that aside from, their next step is probably to go and talk to Tanya in a more in-depth way.
Yeah, let's just go do that. I mean, you guys have the information to call her on the bullshit she was unwilling to share earlier. So, I mean, we can just cut downstairs if everybody's going down there.
Would Ulysses have any reason to believe that Tanya is of use to them outside of the fact that she worked for a long time for Luella or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. Short of being the right-hand woman, which is kind of pointless at this point. She certainly knows the in and outs of your business, which seems like a liability at this point.
And I think privately to Vivian, he would relay his feelings on that and just say, at this point, I want to wring whatever we can out of her, and then we need to get rid of her. She's a liability, she knows too much, and she's proven herself untrustworthy, and even worse than that she's an overt threat.
A snake in the grass can't bite anybody if it doesn't have a head.
True enough. But she could be a straw man. We could use her for something else. We could feed her to the crows as a sacrificial lamb. After all, this doesn't reflect in an optimal way on our family. If it was one of our own employees who caused all of this at its root, they would have reason to push back on us and say that, we brought this onto their turf or into their domain. And they wouldn't be wrong.
I told Luella I didn't trust her. She never took the coffees I brought. Who doesn't like free coffee? Ulysses.
I know, dear.
With that, the group once again descends to the elevator with yet another suspicious, eagle-eyed look from Felix as the lot of you enter the elevator. Do you guys want Tex with you?
Someone should probably stay up there and be suspicious if everybody went down,
Can we send Tex over to talk to Felix?
Yeah, distract
Yeah, that's
him.
good.
Sure, yeah. The lot of you descend down the elevator once again, and I think the next thing we see is just you entering the medical quarters here. Medical, construction, and a few other industries are things that aren't regulated through licensed monopolies. Anyone is allowed to run a business in them for the sake of public health and well-being. I think you basically have an on-site private doctor. I think to everyone here, with the exception of Claudius, it's like a sterile medical room, very white, passive lighting. Maybe even in this day and age, there's a bit of an airlock to enter in it that makes sure no bad air gets in there. I don't know medicine, you guys, okay?
Yeah, bad air. That checks out.
Bad air.
Yeah.
It's just bad air, man.
The leeches don't like the bad air.
They don't.
It's the Nick Cage sequel we always wanted.
Bad air.
But as we enter, Claudius, what's the one thing that reminds you of the trauma you've had in this room? What is the one thing that reminds you that your wife died here?
They walk by several rooms that are more luxuriously appointed, clearly for long-term or hospice-type care. And he glances over at the first one and just has a moment of remembering him and Keaton in that room, waiting for the moment they all knew was coming. He shakes his head and looks back forward, takes a deep breath, and continues on.
Is Claudius wearing his edict currently?
He isn't. He makes it a habit to not carry it around most of the time.
Then the shot we see is just close-up of your hip where a holster might hang as it spins up to see the room where Hazel is standing, a watchful eye over a now unattended Tanya. The doctor having checked out and currently left the room. You're alone besides Hazel in this room. There's only one entrance and exit. There is some surgical equipment around the room. Other than that, I'm not sure what to say about it, besides the vague smell of covered wounds in the air and a slight ozone tinge. What do you want to ask this lying woman, y'all?
Maybe before Ulysses and Vivian rejoin the others, I would like him to also pose the question to her of if Tanya is under the control of someone else or influenced in some way, can we still hold her responsible in the same fashion? Do we have any way to determine this? I know you have some experience in these matters, so I would be curious as to hear your thoughts. The crows know edicts in a way that we do not. Perhaps they would have insight, or is that too dangerous to share with them? If someone was able to control one of our employees, that is troubling.
Not out of the realm of possibility, though.
We should tell them.
She nods with a begrudging acknowledgement.
So I think that they can share that information, on the way down or whenever they're not surrounded by servants who shouldn't, hear about that. But he'll mention the change in her demeanor and sort of the posture and the way that she looked around and possible suspicions about that before they start this conversation.
Vivian is just so upset she can't 3D chess in her brain like she used to.
Well, it is in that state of muddiness. Then you enter the wounded Tanya's holding her burnt arm, looking up at you as you enter.
Vivian brought her a coffee.
Kaz wants to play support role here. Like he's uncomfortable with interrogations, so hanging in the back.
So I have an adventure card that may or may not apply here. It is called Turncoat. The quote is, "How much are they paying you? Your hero somehow convinces or bribes a minor foe to perform a small favor, such as helping the hero escape, revealing the location of the boss, etc." So, given that it seems as though Tanya is antagonistic, whether by choice or not, I don't know if this would apply in this situation.
Yeah, I think we could sort of skip the roles required to get information, and if you want her to be an ally in the investigation in some way, that can probably happen. This is really cool. Do you want to give me your, Bond villain speech to Flipper?
Sure. He'll set this up with everybody else as well and just, say, this is all about appearances. She knows that her life is in our hands, and we need to convince her that it's in her best interest to, at this point, be honest, because there is nothing else waiting for her that could undo all of the ramifications that will fall on her shoulders. In whatever way you feel that's appropriate, please feel free to back me up.
And you should tell her she's getting a raise. 200,000. She'll know what it means.
He'll give Hazel a significant nod to just kind of let her know that things have developed. I think he sits down in a chair next to her, maybe even drags one across the floor and puts it down to sit next to her, reaches a hand out to clasp hers. Tanya, we live in a complicated world where, when you get down to it, the only person you can really count on is yourself. But we have networks and allies and families and friends that we can fall back on to help lift ourselves up and protect us against all of the horrible things that wait for us out there. I believe that everyone has the capacity for good, to assist their fellow man in moving forward in such a fashion, to help uplift others rather than putting them down for selfish gains. I believe in second chances. You know me as well as many others do, in that I've made mistakes in my past, and I have done my best to grow past them, above them, to become more than what I was, to learn from my failures, because that's how we get stronger, by being broken and reforging ourselves piece by piece, block by block. So I want to believe you when you tell me that you had nothing to do with this, that you were looking out for my sister, that you were merely a pawn. But based on what you've told me, I don't know that I can believe that to be true. I'd like to give you a raise, the sum of 200,000 units, which I'm sure you realize is not insubstantial, for your continued assistance in these matters, to rethink any poor choices that you may or may not have made. But that offer is now, and it is an exploding one. And I will not have any dissent in our ranks. So I will have your answer as to whether you will follow my lead and give me your allegiance and your trust, just as I am trusting you now, here, in this moment. Or you can say goodbye to everything you've ever known, because your future ends. Your future will be what we say it is. And you know how absolute that is. Think carefully. Take a moment.
She gulps, pulls her now dirty hair in front of her shoulder and starts to just pull on it, this rope of hair. She looks around the room, thinking about the 200,000 chips and the information that means you have.
Vivian pushes the cup of coffee towards her on the bedside table.
Oh, thank you. I love coffee.
And she takes it and brings it up to her lips.
Listen, I'm sorry I lied to you, but I thought there's no way I'm not going to get killed for this. I was just looking out for her. You know, she wanted an edict and
She looks up at the two crows.
they won't sell them, you know. And, you know, I had this contact and she said she bought one of them. And, you know, she said someone else was making them. So I just asked and got the dealer. And I did sell it to your sister, Ulysses, but she wanted it so badly after that deal with the crows fell through. I barely charged her. I mean, I charged her double what I bought it for, but, you know, I still got it to her. And it was way cheaper than an edict would be. I mean, I only bought it for 500k.
Which, that number, 500,000 chips, is the largest alarm I think Claudius has ever had go off in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
They are worth billions of chips. She bought it for pennies.
Yeah, I think Claudius steps forward and puts a hand on the side of the bed past the other two. You said there was a dealer for 500,000 chips? Who?
A man by the name of Dosa. I'm not sure where he could find him now, but deal went down in a bar. But I'm sure maybe with your connections you can find him again. It was a little hard for me to find, but the woman that told me about him, I mean, I'm sure you know.
1 second. I need to make fucking sure this is who I'm going with.
Tag Wilder.
Tag Wilder, you son of a bitch.
What's that? Tag Wilder?
The woman I got the information off of was Clementine Torres.
Who is the third and youngest sister of the Torres family, making her also your sister-in-law, Claudius.
I don't know if she bought an edict or not, but she put me in that direction. We've been getting chummy over racquetball.
Yeah.
Honest to anyone that's watching, Ulysses, that's all I know. That's all I did. I knew your sister wanted the edict and I got it for her. I paid the man, Peterson, let us sneak it in, and that's it.
Why was it important that you sneak it into this affair?
I just thought it'd be a nice surprise.
I want to insight that.
This is the first time, while you're inciting that, this is the first time I think Kaz speaks up. He's been leaning against the wall this whole time, and he pushes off and like takes a half angry step forward. You thought that an election party was a good time to sneak in a gun? Do you have no sense of decorum? This is entirely the wrong time to do this.
Vivian, do notice her spirit. I don't care which one.
My spirit's a D8, my notice is a D4, so I'll tell you what I'm picking. Damn, I blew up both of them. That's a 9.
Okay, that rings true to you. It seems like she was genuinely heartbroken when she said that. Like she really thought this would just be a nice surprise.
We see Vivian's freckles scrunch as her nose does, as she's like, yeah, makes sense.
I didn't think about the decorum of it. I know she wanted it, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess up the party. I didn't mean for her to get hurt, but it's happened. Where is she anyway?
My sister is a formidable woman. Give her time for now. We'll see what happens, but today's events are serious. I appreciate the truth that you've trusted me with, and I will uphold my word that we will look after you. For right now, I'm going to put additional security detail on you, as your safety may also be a concern. We can't have anything else like this happening. Do you understand?
Ulysses, don't you think that's all a bit much?
She says,
In like a clearly different voice?
in a clearly different voice.
I think he pauses and looks over to Vivian, and then I think he just looks at everybody else to be like, are you guys hearing this too?
Kaz definitely heard it. And I think that the look on his face is a little bit hard for Vivian and Ulysses to perhaps read. Maybe Vivian has known Kaz a little bit better. If his expression said anything, it would be, I fucking knew it.
I think when the voice comes out different, Vivian's seems just pulse bright for a split second in surprise, but she physically doesn't move.
She looks around to everyone, a little more confident than she was before. Her shoulders like pulled back, come up into almost a regal position as she like looks around confused.
Well, if it is a bit much, what would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest that we go home.
Oh, and what would you do once we go home? What are your plans? What do you intend?
Ulysses, you're being ridiculous.
She stands up.
We should go home. Now.
You know, I'm not well known for having a sense of humor, I'm afraid.
You're gonna make a terrible replacement for me.
What?
Lou?
Kaz is glaring at Claudius.
Claudius is fucking gone. Like, he has collapsed and sat down on the bed, and his eyes have glazed over, and he looks absolutely forlorn and lost. You can just hear Claudius muttering, like, not possible. It's not. There's no way. It's not
So,
possible.
what do we do from here?
Vivian puts her head in her hands, on her knees, just rubs her forehead with her palms.
Tanya looks very confused around the room. She sits back down in the bed after she realizes she's standing up.
Kaz looks around at everybody before replying to Tanya. Well, he digs in the breast pocket of his flowing long coat and pulls out a pack of snuff. I think he flips it open and just mainlines the biggest pull out of it that I think he's ever done in his entire life. You'll stay right here, and we have some shit to figure out.
We fade to black before resolving into an aerial shot of somewhere in the Terminus. White text appears on the screen. 1 week earlier. We swoop in like a hawk over this old road. It looks much like an American freeway does. Single road, no lights, just a stretch of broken asphalt stretching away from the city lights in the background as we come in on a vehicle and another vehicle about 200 feet behind it, both of them burning through the twilight. Purple light reflects down from the gray clouds above as a constant haze of dust blows across the road and over their cars, buffeting them as they go. We cut to the side of the first vehicle. It's the size of a military Humvee or something, except it's a little bit shorter, and the angles on it are all much harsher. There's no boxiness to it. It's more like a plane than it is a car. We see it rattling along, bumping over the uneven road as it races past. No engine sound accompanies it. We only hear the tires gritting into the dust, the discarded remains of the planet buffeting against the metal on the outside. The windows are small and closed, similar to like a race car windows. You gotta get real close to look out of them, like something you'd see on the side of a space shuttle. Inside of this vehicle, it's cramped and it's filled with blue lights coming off the dashboard. There are only 2 seats in here. The back is filled with various machinery and an old suit. Sort of looks like a spacesuit, except you'd see from the 70s or the 80s, but a little more bulked up, somewhere between ballistic armor and something you'd take underwater. It's resting on top of other machinery that we can't recognize, much of it rattling around. There's a sound inside this car like when you leave 2 glass bottles too close to each other on top of your refrigerator, and they just vibrate against each other at a constant, annoying pitch. The driver is sweating profusely. He's gotten out of his suit and now just wears a plain black leather jacket. He's got long hair that he brushes out of his eyes, which look erratic and panicked. Large, bushy eyebrows and a 5 o'clock shadow are visible in the blue light. We see him reach down to a stick and change gears before looking in the rear view mirror behind him. Can see 2 headlights burning in the twilight. He swears and pushes his foot down harder, the road grumbling underneath him and his car complaining as it speeds down the road. He wipes some hair out of his face before turning his hand to the dashboard in front of him. It's a bit more futuristic than something you'd see on Earth today. Large, wide touchscreens are in place of any dials or buttons you might see. There are a few for emergencies, hardwired things. The analog solutions are still trusted more than technology. We see him turning off traction control, giving him a little bit more speed. And then suddenly there's a brief flicker. The light on his face gives a harsh strobing effect, and we see him look confused for just a moment before we cut outside to his tires, and we see all 4 of them independently turn 45 degrees to the right. The whole car flips over once. We see it jump in the air before landing again, and then skittering, twisting, burning rubber, and then sliding and falling off the road. We cut inside to his hands gripped on the wheel, now unresponsive, as the car twists, slides, spins, and then finally, like hitting a wall, crashes. We see the man's face fly forward, smashing it. We cut outside to see his car, the front of it rumpled up like pushing a tin can into a rock. A small fire has started on one of the back wheels, and several cracks have now opened in the side of the car. After a few moments, pure black smoke starts to spill out from underneath the car, bubbling up in a viscous stream into the hazy purple light. Then the pursuer's headlights enter frame. We don't see the car, only the headlights spilling out onto the road. Black, fresh skid marks leading from the road into the ditch nearby. We hear a car door open. Cameron Reed, what do we see?
So first we see the road, and then we see a pair of clean, white, athletic shoes hit the road. As the man stands up and starts to move towards the car, the camera starts to pan upward. We see a pair of joggers, something comfortable and athletic, but not without its own sense of style. We continue to pull up, and we see hanging from this man's waist is a tool belt or a fanny pack of some kind. Lots of different components and tools sticking out of it, some that look mechanical, some that look more electronic, and a little technology in there. As we pan up, we see this man's wearing a comfortable t-shirt with a bit of a cyberpunk vest over it. Across the right side of the chest, reading from bottom to top, in big, bold letters, reads Crow. As he reaches down to adjust his belt and check his gun that sits on his left hip, we can see this man is sleeveless, and he's got Japanese-style tattoos reaching from his wrists all the way up to his shoulders, black smoke cloud designs with red flowers and maybe a demon or two floating in there. As we pull up to the top, we can see that his sleeves were ripped off of his shirt, as well as the collar, leaving some of his neck and upper chest exposed. And then we pull to his face, and we meet Keaton Crow. Keaton's got a bit of scruff on his face, fashionable, something that he keeps groomed at this length on purpose. That kind of shag that is a little too long to be 5 o'clock shadow and a little too short to be a beard. He's got kind of a shit-eating grin on a pretty face, almost feminine features, not without the almost masculine, sharp jaw. He's got dark brown eyes and black silky hair sitting above a headband that's a crimson red. And his hair is cut short on the sides, almost buzzed. It can only be described as what a mullet wished it could be. Shorter on the front, longer on the back, but long everywhere. No shorter than 4 inches, silky and loose bouncing curls. Again, just that perfect amount of unkept. And he kind of throws it to the side casually to get it out of his eyes as he approaches this vehicle. We then get another shot from inside of the car, blood dripping from the top down as the car is landed on its roof, this man limply sitting inside.
As Keaton comes in view of him, we see one of the screens that is still operating change to a pure black screen with a white command line and a font reserved only for diagnostics. It flashes a few times, and then the screen begins bombarding strings of code until finally arriving back at a black screen with a single line, Administrator detected.
We get an over-the-shoulder shot as Keaton is looking down at some type of a device about the size of a cell phone with a screen, looks heavier duty. The screen is lit up with the same lines of code, and then a quick cut, administrator detected. Keaton hunches down, gently looking through the broken window, and reaches out to grab the door handle, and with a few quick, violent lurches, opens it, screeching and kicking up sparks against the asphalt below. He then looks down at his device, and we can see that he's accessing travel locations, and you get a progress bar. And as the data is uploading to his personal device, he starts rummaging through the car. We can see him reach in, pat down the man, not find what he's looking for, reach across the vehicle and pull at that suit, pulling it out violently, and skittering in the broken glass on the ground, we see a gun. Not like any gun that you've ever seen. It's oddly shaped. Looks like a handgun, something small, but with unnatural corners. There's almost a ghostly air to it. Maybe parts of it are made of crystal or glass. It looks incredibly expensive. He reaches down to it, picks it up, examines it for a moment, and then looks down towards the man. "Thanks, asshole. I'll be taking this one for the road. And this too." And he gestures towards his phone, where it says upload complete. He then swipes a few more times and stands and starts to walk away, looking down at his device, and the lights start flashing red inside of the vehicle. We can just see it barely behind him. We can see some of that purple sunlight dancing in the sky over those gray and black clouds with this red light in the bottom of the frame. We can see the headlights of the vehicle he pulled up in flash on and start to pull away as the other vehicle behind him bursts into flames.
Thank you for listening to Sounds Like Crow's Terminus. If you liked what we do here, please make sure to like and review. That's the best way to help support this show for free. And if you're feeling a bit generous with coin, you can join our Patreon for access to our Discord and be in the ranks of folks such as Greg Gray, Ariel Weiss, Jared, Kirby, and Jeremy Dunlap, along with Bingo Bango, Sam Witch, Athaziel, Ethan Cooper, and James Wright. Casted this week are myself, Caleb Sunstead, who you can find at Marshall Caleb on Twitter, Isaac Sunstead, who played Kaz Crow on Twitter at Abel the Crow, Claudius Crow, who is played by Austin Holt, Ulysses Rook, who is played by Doug Nesbitt, who you can find on his show RPG for You and Me, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And Vivian Rook was played by Allie Nesbitt, who you can find on Twitter at YouSeeTheHat, or the same on Instagram, or also on her show at RPGForYouAndMe.com. Keaton Crow was played by Cameron Reed, who you can find on Twitter at CJReed211. Music was by William Ecker or myself, who you can find at musicdirecker.bandcamp.com. Special thanks to Kate Downs for story assistance, along with special thanks to my good friend Cameron Reed for doing a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff. And if you follow us on Twitter at Sounds of Crows, he's the one you'll most likely be talking to. Finally, thank you to Renee Wanger for providing her trombone talent. Our executive producer is Alexandria Majin at Alexandria Majin on Twitter. Thanks for sticking around for the credits, folks. See you next time.